Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Uncovered Queen, and today I am doing a video on what is cloning really. Now, this is simply because in lieu of what's happened with the Kenneka Jenkins case, I have taken a little bit of a break, and I'm seeing a lot of videos from not all YouTubers, but some YouTubers that are dare I say infamous for reporting on the case. I have seen people with the perspective that there are Kenneka Jenkins clones out there, or that there could be clones, and this is only based on the fact that they're lookalikes. And I think it is really important to understand what cloning is. I did watch a movie as well. If I get it up on the screen here. Okay, so I watched this movie called Selfless. The main character, let's get some images up. The main character, which is this guy here, he is a super multi-billionaire, and he's basically dying of cancer, and he knows he's dying of cancer and he doesn't want to die, so he decides to live forever, in other words, become immortal by having his cells put into the body of this guy, who's obviously a younger version of him. And so essentially he lives forever. He goes from being, on his deathbed about to die, and turns into this guy. And so I thought, well, technically, for what my understanding is of a clone, that this isn't a clone, because it's identically not the same person. So is that all a clone is? Okay, and this is another book that I've actually read, and this book is called Perfect People. And basically, the parents based in this story, they have a rare genetic disorder, which means they can pass it on to their child. And they did have a baby. They had a 4-year-old son who died from this genes, because they passed the genes on to him. And they desperately wanted another child, but obviously realised the odds of their next child having the same disease were quite high, and so they went to a doctor on some private yacht and basically gave them their genes, but selected the attributes they wanted of their child. So I want my child to be smart, I want my child to be athletic, I want my child to be musically inclined, I want my child to speak more than one language. And so they did this. Bear in mind, these are books. This is a book, and this is a movie. And I kind of thought to myself, well, is this cloning? Like in this case, I would say this is like designer children, designer babies, in a sense where it's like test tube babies. You know what I mean? You are basically building the components that you want of your child, but this movie made me scratch my head a little bit, because it's like, well, actually, is the person a clone? Isn't it a clone? And anyway, so it kind of just made me wonder, really, what is cloning? Is it really as simple as taking my genes, replicating them, and replicating another me? How do you replicate? You can replicate my body, but how do you replicate my mind and my thinking? Is there really a such thing as being able to choose how you act in your brain? So I come across these 3 videos, which I'm going to show you, basically, of these people explaining what cloning is. This one's only 5 minutes long, just under 5 minutes long. So this guy basically gives you a general kind of overview on what cloning is. B.o.B, he just kind of speaks on really what he believes cloning to be. This video by Pharaoh is a little bit, I want to say, biased, in the sense that, from my understanding, he comes from a movement in which they are heavily based in the Egyptian teachings. As I said before, this video really isn't for me to really push my opinion on what cloning is, because actually I don't know what cloning is, and actually I don't think cloning is as straightforward as what we think it is. And so when people are talking about Kenneka Jenkins may or may not have a clone, I don't think these people understand what a clone is when they say that. I think they're just saying lookalikes, and I think it isn't really untypical or rare to have people that look alike that are within the same city. I don't think that's really insane, because when you think about it logically, a lot of because I mean, I've watched certain videos, as I said before. I don't want to say names because the video really isn't about calling anybody out. It's really just about educating, and if we're going to say certain terms, let's know what we're talking about. You know, let's understand that term properly. But yeah, a lot of these people look the same on the basis that they have similar weaves, similar eyelashes. You see what I mean? Those are things that they're not a part of your actual body. Like, you can take your weave out, you can take your eyelashes off, you can take your makeup off, and you don't look like each other then. Okay? So without further ado, I will get on with these videos, and I'll come back with my commentary at the end.
So look, the cloning shit is not what you think it is. It's not as simple as, well, why would somebody want to clone that nigga? What that nigga got? If you understand how the physical world is a reflection of the spiritual world, and you start fucking with the DNA and shit, you understand that you're tapping into some other shit. You're like ripping a portal open on some shit. The movie Boys of Brazil, even the movie Congress, she agrees to give them her image. They like scan her some shit, and then she goes into this digital world. So everything is connected, and they need the influential people to maintain the mind control and how they program your subconscious mind to respond to things. And they need these influential leaders to trigger your mind control, to trigger your trauma, basically trigger your trance. It's kind of a complex thing to grasp, because the 1% that use this occultic knowledge to control the masses, they teach you a certain way to think. You know, you think you're on a sphere moving millions of miles through space. Why is it that all alien stories and abduction stories have to do with grays? You know, if you think with aliens, like, wouldn't it be like some other type of shit? Wouldn't it be like just all different kinds of shit? But it's always grays. It's always them. Since Kemet in Egypt and the Atlanteans were fucking around with genomics, basically tampering with the DNA pool, tampering with the gene pool, created a mutation which then moved into the ground, and they can't survive on the surface. And so in order to get the control, they cloned the leaders, and then they basically replaced the leaders. And that's why in The Simpsons you always see them rip off the skin and they're like aliens underneath. And it's not even on no racism shit, but it's literally understanding the genome and how the Aboriginal man carries melanin. And I know most of y'all probably just like, oh man, shit, melanin, man, just shit to keep you protected from the sun. Like, nah, bro, it's deeper than just skin color. Shit ain't got nothing to do with skin color. You need to learn the metaphysical properties and the quantum properties of melanin and what it actually does. Like, speaking from a scientific standpoint, this is no conspiracy. This is, you know, there's a whole science behind this shit. You know, they teach us this basic earth science, but you got to understand the metaphysics of the kundalini energy and the pineal gland, and you know, your spinal fluid. And you also need to understand, if only a certain kind of people produce it, why are those people the most oppressed people? I was researching Dr. Sebi and all his work, and how this nigga's been curing paralysis, AIDS, cancer, blindness, nigga, since the fucking 80s. He brought all 70 of his patients into the court to prove this shit. And ain't nobody put this nigga on? Nobody. And also, what niggas don't know is that Left Eye was going to see Dr. Sebi in Honduras, where his facilities were. It's all connected to why certain black leaders get replaced, and all of a sudden they switch up and they doing shit that they preached against. They spent their whole legacy preaching against some shit, and then all of a sudden they cool with it. It's why you don't never see these niggas. It's certain niggas you just never see in public. You don't never see these niggas in public. And they either kill them or replace them, or they fake their death. They go into hiding. I'm telling y'all, like, I know, like, I study this shit. I know this shit. I'm not even saying it on cocky shit, but it's just the truth. Like, that's what the fuck is going on. From politics to hip hop music to rock music. Call me crazy. I got lots of friends in the industry who I can't talk to no more. Can't even get them on the phone. Talking about somewhere I've been at. Nigga, I've been here. So it's all connected. But they're not gonna talk about this shit. They're gonna run a Bob Flat Earth headline probably. They ain't gonna talk about this cloning shit. When something is just, you know how you just know something is true and you like feel it right here, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what this is how you discern shit. Like, all this shit right here, this is how you discern what's true or not. Like, this is just like your mind. They teach us that our mind is like the shit that figures everything out, but that's not true. This brain controls your body and all your motor functions and all your organ and bodily functions, but this is where you exist. This is your center, you know what I'm saying? So it don't matter what I say or what nobody else say, what the president say, what anybody say. You know what the fuck when you feel that shit right here. That's what the truth is. This is something that I really need to explain, because I know last year I came out talking a lot about cloning, and who that told some didn't you go to Evansdale? Yeah, I went to Evansdale. What's up? So last year I started talking about the cloning shit, and I didn't realize until this year that a lot of people don't understand what it is. Like, they think it's just about like copying a person or replicating body tissue, and that's not even. Yeah, I've looked up Planet Nibiru, Planet X, but like, it's not just about copying a person. It's about consciousness transfer, and it started with MK Ultra. And the reason why this is important is because it's a lot of people that are unwillingly participating in this shit, and they don't even fucking know it. It's mind control, and it started with Germany. It started after World War II. All the Nazis were, escorted, VIP'd in. All the top scientists and military personnel were harbored in the United States and South America. And also, prior to that, the Nazis went to Antarctica. And a lot of the reason why Admiral Byrd went to Antarctica was because the Nazis were in Antarctica. Yes, Werner von Braun, exactly. Fucking props, Aaron Badescu. I don't know if I'm saying the name right, my bad. But Werner von Braun is actually he actually started NASA, I believe. And on Werner von Braun's tombstone, he has a Bible verse that talks about the firmament. So I thought that was interesting. But so anyway, after World War II, the Nazis went to Antarctica and found this fucking supercomputer. And this supercomputer was I ain't got no lighter. Here we go. And so this supercomputer was already there and under the fucking ice, and it's kind of like that movie Prometheus, where they go find that spaceship and it's like a supercomputer already in there. And so a part of the reason why Admiral Byrd went down there was they made it seem like he was just trying to explore Antarctica, but he was trying to go see what the fuck the Nazis was doing, and he got his ass turned back. If you look at that interview, it looks like he's not really telling the truth about what he saw. Like, you can tell something is like on his heart when he's talking. Like, go look at that interview about Admiral Byrd. And so basically, the Nazis coming to America and South America is what started Operation Paperclip. and it's what started the CIA and the NSA. And so the Central Intelligence Agency is actually like all of the major Hollywood studios. They're actually the CIA, and that's why all this information gets put into these movies. It's sort of like a soft disclosure, sort of like a predictive programming. I don't know, but like you ever see these movies and it's just like, why the fuck are these secrets in this fucking movie? And it's like, that's why the CIA is behind it, and it's not even just like behind it, like they literally are Hollywood. And so where was I? So anyway, I'm trying to be brief. So basically, with Operation Paperclip, that's what started all the MK Ultra tests and them grabbing people involuntarily, all the missing kids and missing people that were used for MK Ultra. And what they would do is they would experiment with consciousness transfer, where they could transfer your consciousness, and also they could replicate DNA. They could replicate your body. They could replicate your body, put you in another body, train you to be an assassin or fucking anything, and then transfer you, and then wipe your memory and transfer you back into your original body, and you think that you just had a crazy ass dream, and it happens different. It happens different for different people. Like certain people are like kidnapped and kept on these bases. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe they were like they trained them, transferred their consciousness, trained them, put them back in their original body, put them back into society as some Hollywood actor or artist that just pops up out of nowhere. You never heard of him, or a president, or a news anchor, or the CEO of a huge multi-billion-dollar company. You know, it's they basically brainwashed and made sleeper agents out of all of the key factors, the key integral positions in society, including news anchors. I think that's a huge thing because, as you saw, the whole shit with Al Roker when they said make room for the Holy Spirit and he froze up for 17 seconds. That's some MK Ultra shit. And so basically the reason why I don't know who's on here hating. I'm still finna block you. So the reason why this is important is because it's a lot of people that's involuntarily being used for this shit. So basically, a lot of people are involuntarily involved in this cloning shit, and cloning is not just being a clone. It's not like we're gonna give you a new body and control you. It's like that's not what it is. It's the consciousness transfer. It's this breakaway civilization that's been going on for eons and eons. There's no telling if this has been happening for thousands of years or millions of years, but either way, it's a time loop. We're stuck in this time loop because a parasitic infection came and I don't know, it got in here. I have to look up a way to express it so that everybody understands it, but basically it doesn't really matter, like however you want to look at it. A parasitic infection, if you want to look at it like aliens, if you want to look at it like I don't know, but there was basically a parasitic infection and it took over, and so they have to feed this parasitic entity and that is controlling this realm. And the only way to end this is to stop feeding the beast. It's to stop feeding the parasite. It's not gonna happen from us rioting in the streets. It's not gonna happen from us marching up to the White House. What's gonna happen is y'all gonna educate yourselves and y'all are gonna detox your bodies and y'all gonna spread this knowledge and spread this information until everybody knows, and we stop feeding this parasite and we fucking end this matrix illusion. So, I just wanted to talk about cloning. So if y'all want to look up cloning, it's some people that I've mentioned in the past. There's also this dude named Al Tellez. Y'all should look up. He has a lot of experiences There's a dude named Max Spears and a dude named it's a lot of people, but you have to just use your own critical thinking, and it's very simple. It's very simple what's going on. So it's just very complicated to explain it in just a very simple way.
I'm gonna take you step by step through the process of how it's done. Now, before we get into cloning and who's been cloned and how a clone works and how they're being used to cause confusion in the world and also murder people through the MK Ultra program, which I'll be breaking down in this video, we have to understand how cloning is done. Now, in order to clone somebody, you have to have the female counterpart of that species, and you have to have the female counterpart of that species not only genetically, but the blood type must match as well. It must be compatible. Why? Because if not, you will not have a clone. You will not be able to duplicate the individual, aka regenerate the exact genetic material that you want. Because, for example, if you take a black person and you take their DNA, and you take a white woman and you take her egg and you fertilize the egg with the DNA, it becomes a mulatto. It's not a clone. So you have to understand, when you're cloning someone, they have to have the exact blood type and the exact female species genetic, the same genetic marker basically, and a female version of the person that they're cloning. So let's get into cloning. Now, when you want to clone somebody, what they do is they take a glass pipe, which is the size of a single strand of hair. Now, why do they use a glass pipe? Because the same reason you should drink your water out of glass, or the same reason you store beverages in glass, because glass can be made out of natural elements and will not taint the genetic material or alter the specimen in any way. Just like they say you shouldn't drink out of plastic because the chemicals run into the plastic and they taint it. When you clone somebody, you use glass because it doesn't, unlike plastic, glass is natural and it won't taint whatever it's being contained in. And they use a glass pipe the size of a strand of hair because it's thin enough to penetrate bacteria and germs. Remember, germs carry genes. So it's thin enough to penetrate the germ and extract the DNA out of the genes and to carry it to the fertilizing cell from the female species, where it's fused in a process called electric shock, which I'll be going into next. Now, electric shock is also used in genetic splicing, which if you attended or you seen my you attended my lecture titled Genetic Reincarnation, I broke down genetic splicing. But to go into genetic splicing briefly so that you have understanding of cloning, genetic splicing is when they use an enzyme to extract a certain sequence of your DNA and separate it from the rest of your DNA. Then they do the same process with another species, and then they fuse them together in a process called electric shock. With this, how they created the liger. So you take two pieces of DNA and you weld them together using heat. Now, why is it important? Because heat is how you weld anything physical together. Just like when they create cars, they have the blowtorch. They're welding the metal. Some of us, when we break stuff around the house, we take a lighter and we weld it back. When you want to weld genetic material or biological material, aka cells, you have to use electricity. Electricity is hotter than fire. The sun is not a big ball of fire, it's a big ball of electricity. So you need something that's hot enough and quick enough to activate the cells, because remember, cells run off electricity. Your body runs off, your nervous system runs off electricity, electrical current. So what happens is they extract the genetic material, aka a person's DNA, from the blood, from the genetic marker that they got it from the cell that they got it from the person that they want to clone, whether it be male or female, and they go find the exact female of that person, of that race, whatever you want to call it, white, black, Spanish, Russian, whatever you think you are. They go find the female version of whoever they think you are, match your blood type. And once they have a person that has your blood type, they extract the cell, the egg, from the female of that person, taking the glass pipe with your genetic material, insert it into the cell, and then shock it in a process called electric shock. What this shocking does is it actually burns, welds, fuses, whatever words you want to use. It fuses the foreign DNA to this egg in an unnatural fertilizing process, because this is not sex. This is It's an unnatural fertilization process. They use electric shock to fuse your genetic material into this egg. But also the electricity activates the egg, and the egg begins to grow into an embryo, and the embryo becomes a fetus just like as if it was pregnant. And this eventually becomes the identical to the person that they're cloning. Why? Because by this not being sexual, no exchange of genes were given between the mother and the father. No excess genes, no genetic material was able to be traded to give the child its own characteristics. Only thing that this gene has to go off is all it had, which is a specific sequence of DNA. So that's why when they clone you, you come out looking exactly like yourself instead of a tad bit different. Because kids don't look exactly like their parents. They just look a lot like their parents, but not exactly. Because they have their own genetic material as well. But when you take someone's DNA and you don't allow the mother and the father to both give DNA to the child, then the only thing that will grow in that egg is exactly what was put in it. So, getting back on point. Now, when they used to clone people back in the day, they would have to wait until the clone lived an entire life expectancy. Which means, if you're 40 and I clone you, I gotta wait till you die and literally wait 40 years for this clone to become the exact age that you were. And not only that, they didn't have the technology to educate the clone. So they would have to literally re-speak to the clone and re-educate it verbatim. Now, they got technology like in the Dulce underground cloning base in Mexico, which is the actual base of where they clone people. It's spelled DULCE cloning facility in Mexico. Look it up. Now they got technology where they have what you call test tube babies, where now they don't even need the woman to put the egg back into the woman for her body to generate it and for it to come out the womb. Now they got a tube where they actually not only can fake nurture you inside as if you have a mother, so basically you have technology that can be your artificial mommy. Not just that, they can accelerate the growth process of the cell. This is called cellular acceleration, the cellular acceleration process. They can actually speed up how fast your cells grow and make you 40 years old again in a week. Because your cells have memory. Remember, when they took the cells out of your body, your cells remembered actually aging for 40 years. So all they're doing is reawakening the memory of that cell at an accelerated rate, and the cell begins to grow into its 40-year-old self again because it already did it once, so it remembered how to do it. So they are genetically manipulating material that they extract from the DNA. So now, once the cell gets 40 years old, now this cell looks exactly like the person that it was just extracted from. So what happens was, this is where MK Ultra comes in.
So those were the videos that I put together. In my opinion, I felt like these videos did break down cloning in a little bit more depth. I kind of felt like after I'd watched these videos, I had a better understanding. No, it's not clearer. No, I am not an expert, but I do feel like I know a little bit more, and I understand that what we see on TV and what we think cloning is very simplistic, and I feel like it is simplistic enough for us to literally become confused. So, as I said before in the beginning of the video, I had watched a couple of videos on YouTube regarding Kenneka Jenkins and possible girls that could have been clones. Now, as I said before, the only thing really was just lookalikes, and then this person kind of said it's a little bit too coincidental to have a few people that look similar to her living within the same proximity. And as I said before, like, when you're saying the lookalikes, you're talking about the hairstyle, you're talking about, like, for example, there's a particular picture that I am referring to, where they're both wearing fake eyelashes and they've both got similar weave. So it's like the hair and the eyes look the same, but if you were to literally take their weaves off, we don't know what they would look like. Do you see what I mean? So I feel like using the two individual terms, lookalike and clone, I feel like does create a lot of space for confusion. But nonetheless, I just said, as I said, I thought I'll put these videos together just so we can have a better understanding. And yeah, that is it really.